Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ray Kuhl. I'm CEO of PBSI Technology Solutions, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar, How to Know If Your IT Security is Working. This is part of a 8-part series. This is the final, where today, a really important topic, many people have this same question. We've put all of our security practices in place. We have our firewalls, we have our antivirus. Now, how do we know if everything's really okay? I want to thank our partners at the Academy of Medicine, longtime clients of PBSI and also partners in serving hundreds of physicians in the local Cincinnati area. Today's topic, how to know if our IT security is working, is a part of this series which the goal is simply to inform and educate, to improve knowledge about electronic security and to provide practical information about if we need to make a change, what do we need to do, how do we do so. In the series so far, we've talked about the security essentials in healthcare, and all of these recordings are available, by the way, and will be published to each registrant. The second topic, we covered email security training, really important. This is something every staff person should be exposed to, how to evaluate bad emails. We talked about file encryption and how to keep information safe. We talked about Dragon Medical. Really useful information on password management, some valuable tips and some options on managing passwords. We talked about protecting and how to find unprotected, meaning unencrypted PHI. And we talked about what do we need to do in preparation for the end of Windows 7 end of life coming next January. Today, how do we know if our IT security is working? It's a simple topic. We'll be fast and efficient today. We're going to just review the most common security threats against which we're protecting in healthcare, the principles of effective protection, and the single topic we're going to work through in demonstrating is online security monitoring, exactly what information is available to know if our defenses are in fact working. So I want to thank the many of you who are long-term PBSI clients. Hundreds of you in the local community have been using PBSI for technology services for, in some case, decades. Thank you very much. Some of you, this is your first exposure to PBSI. Hope this information is helpful and useful. To me, as CEO of PBSI, the most important thing I can say about PBSI is that the great majority of our staff are very experienced, having had 10 or more years of experience with PBSI, lots of healthcare experience. And I know that from that experience, clients are served. So CEO, it's a fantastic thing to know. Clients, you are appreciated. Staff, you are appreciated. Our main focus in life is IT and IT security. So from that information, let's move directly to what are, as reported by OCR, the most common types of data breaches that occur where our data really gets exposed to the outside world. And this broad category of unauthorized access or disclosure could cover a number of different kinds of exposures, but generally these would be apparently a non-hacking. So PBSI does not identify the categories, but separately hacking incidents are the second most common. So presumably these unauthorized access are unauthorized access that the presumption is they're not bad actors. They're employees or patients or someone else where information is unintentionally disclosed. But hacking incidents, we know these are very common, and every time one happens with a healthcare client, it's a disaster. And every time it happens, through all the work we've done with clients to help them prepare for and avoid, every time one happens, yet another ransomware attack, it is just so frustrating. And one of the main goals of this entire series is to help folks prepare so this doesn't happen to you. Improper disposal is something that happens where we're required under HIPAA to dispose of electronic information in a proper way with PCs and laptops and copiers that have hard drives. That includes destruction of the hard drive and loss of data. This happens not all that frequently, but you lose a laptop or a laptop is stolen. These can be very dangerous situations. And one thing that we covered in one of our series is if you encrypt your laptop, then you have a complete defense against the requirement to report a breach. Otherwise, you lose a laptop, the potential to report a breach is right there, and you have a very difficult decision to make. So by far, the most common thing that we are concerned about as far as real risk exposure is hacking incidents. So how do we know if our defenses are working properly? We're going to talk about that. Quick review of the overview of all the elements of security. We need to have a firewall in place that blocks things from the outside, that's appropriately set up so that permissions are not arbitrarily granted, that they're specifically granted, that we have our firewall set to run silent so it doesn't report the status of things and protects our network so that hackers from the outside can't ping individual PCs within the network or servers within the network. We have to have this exterior protection. Basic blocking and tackling. Desktops must be protected. This is a HIPAA requirement with current antivirus and anti-malware. Patch management, for those who didn't participate in earlier webinars, patch management is making sure that all software on every PC is updated with the latest security patches. And by far the most common hack of a PC comes through an unupdated software patch where Microsoft or another vendor, Adobe, Apple, publish a security update and it's ignored. So it's important that our PCs be set correctly. And we'll look today how we can know that our PCs are all having their software patches updated. Once a patch is sent, security bad guys worldwide are notified, Microsoft just fixed a security issue, which they describe as XYZ in Windows 7 version XYZ. Wonder if we can uncover a way to attack that. Oh, what do you know? We can. And now they're attacking worldwide within, who knows, days, probably not hours, but days of the release of the security patch. And if we don't get ahead of them and make sure that our patches are updated, then we put ourselves at significant risk. And vulnerability scanning, we'll talk about today, how do we identify whether there are any new vulnerabilities that have been acquired on any of our PCs or servers. So we need to protect our perimeter, we need to protect our desktops, we need to make sure our email is secure, and we've talked about this, I won't go into detail, but email protection tools and training for employees to know how to evaluate bad emails are a big, important part of this. We have to make sure that we're protected with a disaster recovery plan that almost certainly for every practice today should include online backup, which is redundant and has ransomware protection, meaning that the local backups are highly encrypted so that if ransomware attacks, they cannot destroy our local data. And then if for whatever reason they are able to, that we have redundant backups online that are disconnected from our devices. This is so critical. Every single time if a ransomware or a malware or virus attack occurs at a client site, the first thing we want to go to is online backup and make sure that we have a good copy. And if it's not in place, everybody's in a panic. So please, if you don't have this in place, make sure that this is a part of your plan. So all of these lead up to the topic for today, which is once we have these protections in place, how do we know if they're working okay, and how can we find anything that might be at risk in our network? So I'm going to move on and do a short demonstration of how online security monitoring works. In these webcasts, we are not trying to sell PBSI products and services. We offer these services, and the best way I know to identify how security monitoring works is to show you exactly how we do it at PBSI. And so I'm going to demonstrate the tool we use to ensure that practices who are clients are safe, how we know that the antivirus is working, patch management is working, how we learn about the outcome of each vulnerability scan and risk intelligence scan, and how we know about the status of online backups. So with that, I'm going to move to, on your screen now, is the live PBSI dashboard. So on the left-hand side, here are all PBSI clients. I have selected only PBSI. So I'm not a dashboard technician. I'm the CEO, and our technicians don't let me near this, except for to demonstrate. But the typical dashboard technician doesn't have PBSI selected, they have all clients selected. And what happens is that we're looking at the status of servers, workstations, mobile devices, and other network devices. And on my screen right now, I've isolated servers. And so on the upper right-hand part of my screen where my cursor is moving, these are all the servers at PBSI. So many clients have just one or two servers. We have a bunch of servers for different reasons. What happens is that there's an alert system that's running 24/7, and it's prioritized so that all client-wide, the most problematic server would immediately come to the top. A failed backup would be included in that kind of a virus, a large number of failed login attempts. There are a variety of things where a hardware problem would cause a server to come straight to the top. And that's what technicians are doing. They're looking at the most problematic devices and making sure that the most important problems are being addressed right now. However, in addition, there is a dashboard manager assigned to every client. And the dashboard manager is going through each client multiple times per month and going device by device by device and looking at the condition of the various aspects that we're monitoring. And through the alert system and through the proactive monitoring, we rarely get a service call for something that's hardware related where we don't already know in advance that the condition is present. So frequently we're taking care of things and the client doesn't even know that they're taken care of. But I'm going to pick a server at PBSI and we're going to use this for demonstration. So on a particular server, I've picked this one. The south panel, the bottom right-hand corner of my screen, this is where the details show up of whatever device I have selected above. So examples, we're checking backup, and I can look at the status of backup on any given PC, and I can know that here's the backup status. We keep the last 28 days for every device that's monitored, and the green line at the top of that day means everything was successful. If there was a day where there were errors or that backup was unsuccessful, that would have resulted in an immediate alert. In this case, nope, everything's fine. And today, the backup hasn't yet taken place. So being able to be alerted immediately if backup's not working and know the status is one important component. So we've put our backup in place, but we talk to so many not yet clients, and we ask about their backup and they say, well, I think it's working. It's supposed to be working. We have a device here that's supposed to be backing up, but do you really know? Well, no, how would we know if it's working? So online monitoring, we know immediately that the backup's working. Okay, what else are we paying attention to? Failed login attempts. So in this case, there are no failed login attempts. That's what we want. Failed login attempts happen when somebody tries to enter in their login and password and they make a mistake. That would be one, and that would be reported here as one failed login. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we don't care at all. But when we see a problem where somebody has inappropriate remote access, all of a sudden we see 6,000 or 22,000 failed login attempts where somebody's executing an electronic attack. If a firewall is in place that effectively protects the server, we should never see a failed login attempt like that. But what if the firewall weren't set correctly? What if somebody had found a way around the way the firewall was set up? That's why we have interior monitoring going on. And so there are just certain things that are immediate attention grabbers. So there are a bunch of other things that are monitored. We're monitoring the amount of disk space. So if a server or a PC is about to run out of space, we know that well in advance. We're able to monitor bandwidth. So here's a case where we have, and performance, here's a case where we have a server where we're monitoring processor utilization, and we can see the status of that. We can look back in history. So what I'm doing now would be a diagnostic tool that I would only do if something showed up on the dashboard that said, is this a problem? Let's look at some history. So we can see on the left-hand side for everything being measured the last 24 hours. On the right-hand side, the last 8 days. So you see a couple of spikes here. These tend to be once a day. And the same thing here, processor utilization, we see the spikes, and it's at pretty much the same time every day. Well, what does that tell me? That's when online backup is taking place. Okay, that's expected, and it's happening at 12:52 p.m., I guess. During the normal course of a day, though, the processor utilization, for the various processors in this server, the amount of RAM being used, again, you see the spikes. So the technicians can look at this and they say, yep, that's understood. I understand why that's going on. But if something is above the red line and is consistently, then they're asking the question, if there's a problem, is it a problem right now? Has it been going on all day? Has it been going on for more than one day? So these are the kind of diagnostic tools that allow online visibility that would be a better way to know if a server's too busy than if somebody's saying it's running slowly. So there are many, many service checks that are running. Is the spooler running okay? All these things that should be running successfully, and rarely are they not running successfully, we're able to check. So you really don't want to go device by device and look at these things, but you do want alerts. So I'm now going to move to workstations. So I just looked at servers at PBSI. Now these are workstations, so I can scroll through all the workstations at PBSI. In my case, I want to look at my PC. So I'm going to look at PCs at PBSI that have the name Ray in them. And that includes this one. This is my desktop PC. This is the PC in front of which I sit as I speak to you. So here's my Microsoft Surface. We can see the status of that and if anything had happened there. And yes, I did have some failed logins on my Surface. So, but I'll focus on my desktop PC. And this is really where the action is. Servers generally, they're secured well, they run well, there aren't issues, but regularly, we find issues with PCs for a variety of reasons, some of which are human nature. So we know that the antivirus is all up to date. This information over here I can drill into more, but there's no reason to drill into it if everything's running okay. Event logs, if somebody says, my PC seems to be running slowly, some things that are going on, we can look at the event log and see, well, what kinds of things? We know that the physical disk is okay. What are the most common things that are happening on this PC? The things that I'm showing you right now are things that Ray sitting at his PC is just like you sitting at your PC. Ray's not looking at these things. He doesn't care about his bandwidth and his backup and whether his patches are up to date. He wants somebody else to take care of this on his behalf, and that's what security monitoring does. So the patch status scanning, I'm going to go into just a little bit of detail. This tells me that everything, all patches are up to date. Everything's green. If I look at a different PC, and we see on Ray's Surface, so those are up to date as well. Ray's home PC, which we have monitored. Okay, here's one where this is not uncommon, that the last update for Skype in this case was not completed successfully. Why was that true? Was it true because Ray's PC was offline or because it conflicted with some other process, but a technician who sees this failed can say, reprocess that. And Ray doesn't even know that his home PC just got an update scheduled and could be rebooted. So this is the way things work. From afar, things can be corrected. So we see the status of patches. We see the status of virus. So if there's been any recent virus activity, that will show up. We see the status of backup and whether that's been successful every day. We see the status of Ray's web activity. So nobody's trying to play Big Brother here. Where's Ray going on the web or how much time is he spending? But this stuff is accumulated so that if there are URLs to which Ray has clicked on an incorrect link or to a bad website, then that history would be here. And so a lot of this is just diagnostics. We can also see the status of assets. So this is useful, hardware and software. So at PBSI, we're talking to a client whose front desk PC is having an issue. Well, we can look and see on Ray's PC, there's 16 gigabytes of RAM, but on another PC, there might be less. And see, these are all diagnostic things. We can see what hardware. There's a webcam on Ray's PC. There's an audio device connected. So the technicians can see things online, including software. So we know that Ray has Adobe Acrobat DC installed and that he has his advanced monitoring agent, which is connected to the online monitoring installed, and so forth. If we saw a bunch of games on Ray's PC, then we might say, well, what the heck is Ray doing playing all these games on their PC? And maybe we'd say, well, your PC might be running slowly because you have all this software installed, and we can go about uninstalling software or notifying a client to do that. So these are just some things. These aren't used every day. They're simply there that when a PC has a problem, when an alert is established, technicians can see the status of every little detail. So I'm going to move now from basic online monitoring to monitoring of unencrypted PHI. So in a previous webinar, we talked about how do we know what data is unprotected on our network. So when we do a security risk analysis for a practice, and when a practice does a security risk assessment, one of the sets of questions is, where do you store PHI? And specifically, what HIPAA auditors are looking for isn't PHI that's protected. If in your EHR database, that's all encrypted and protected. So it's not really at risk. So it's there, but it's not a risk. But if it's unencrypted, then it could be at risk. How could it be at risk? What if that PC got hacked? What if our network got hacked? And this is what ransomware does. It attacks one PC and then it moves to all the PCs and servers and shared drives on the network, anything they can find. And all of a sudden now, the data that's stored on our front desk and our billing manager's PC and our physician's PCs, they all become potential risks for data theft. So I'm going to do a short demonstration here of the PCI and risk intelligence scanning that we're doing every night. So on Ray's PC, every night there is a risk intelligence scan done, and it's looking for unencrypted either patient information or other protected information. So protected information in healthcare setting, as you know very well, is a name associated with at least one other piece of information: date of birth, ICD code, CPT code, social security number, credit card number, any of those associated with a name causes it to be protected. So I'm going to look at the most recent scan that was run last night on Ray's PC. And I would never go to Ray's PC and look at this unless there were some indicator that there's a lot of data that should be evaluated on Ray's PC. Last night, the scan found $402 in potential liability. On a billing manager's PC or a transcription PC, we can find $400,000 worth of unexposed data because each piece of exposed data has a value when it's for sale on the dark web. So if all of your patient data were gathered and it had protected information associated with it, you could have some very, very significant liability. On Ray's PC, it's only $402, and I can scroll down here and see what are the details. Well, on Ray's PC, it was only one file, and that file is stored on Ray's OneDrive, and it's stored in this subfolder, and here's the name of the PDF file, and sure enough, this is Ray's and his wife's. I'm speaking about myself in the third person. These are our social security numbers. Well, sure enough, that file is there. I put that file there. And I'm not particularly concerned about that. It's my social security number, it's my wife, it's on my OneDrive. I'm okay with that. So it doesn't, just because there's unprotected data, doesn't mean it has to be removed. What we're trying to do, though, with the risk intelligence scan is find places where we had no idea there was data there. And there are all kinds of places where this can take place. Unprotected data lives on shared drives on servers where we've copied folders from a PC 3 years ago onto the server, and it had a bunch of billing reports and some other EHR reports, and nobody knows that that data is there. So the risk scan will find that data. Information on a transcription PC. Who thought about the fact that this transcriptionist has been storing Word files on their PC for the last 10 years, and all that patient data sits there on the C drive. So obviously, this isn't universally the way it works, but they're just examples. Billing staff who download PDF reports of the billing report so that they can work on it on their PC, all of a sudden, oh yeah, that's stored on the PC. Email history. We sent an encrypted email to a patient or to a referring source, and it's in our sent mail. In our sent mail on our email, it's not encrypted. So if a hacker were to access my PC, how much could they find? So what we're trying to do with this risk intelligence scan is identify where data is at risk so that we can identify, okay, we know where our risk is, and clean up what we can clean up. So where does this come into play? It comes into play, unfortunately, we've had just too many cases where a client experiences a ransomware attack, and now, so they recover their files, but the question is, do we need to report a breach? What data was accessed? What data was stolen? Well, if we don't know where the data was stored on our network, we have no idea. There is no way for us to know if we have a put us out of business breach reporting that we've exposed data for all of our patients. By knowing, conversely, by knowing which PCs and which server we had data, we can know that there was no data that they could have accessed that would have compromised us. We do not need to report a breach. We know that for certain. Being able to answer that very simple question is worth so much. If you've ever been in the situation where you had an attack and you had to ask yourself the question, do we need to report a breach? You know there is sleepless nights, there are legal risks, we just don't want to be there. So what this screen does is it shows client-wide all of the monitoring we're doing, how many credit cards, how many driver's licenses, how many social security numbers, how many dates of birth, and there are a ton of them. So we have a lot of clients with a lot of exposed data. It's okay as long as they know about it. It may be that on a certain transcription PC, they're saying, I know we have data there. That's okay. It's part of our procedure. We just need to keep it there. But we understand that's the device that's at risk, and it's not all of our devices, and so forth. So we can drill into and identify, there was a bunch of new data that showed up on XYZ PC at XYZ client site last night. How did it get there? Why did it get there? Do we want to leave it there? So risk intelligence scanning is a part of online security monitoring. So hopefully this makes sense that what we're doing with security monitoring is we've put our defenses in place, but now there's a nightly vulnerability scan and there's an hourly reporting process where we know the current status of every PC at every client site and every server at every client site that's being monitored, and we know for sure that things are running okay. If there were a keylogger running on that PC, we would see it. It would be reported, and it's just so common that a client sitting at a front desk PC, there's a keylogger installed there. It's a piece of malware. It's very dangerous, but the client doesn't know it. As far as they're concerned, my PC seems to run okay. Sometimes it seems a little slow. They don't have access to what we would have access to, which is that, nope, there's no keylogger, everything's okay. All right, so hopefully that demonstration is helpful to understand what kinds of things are being monitored. We're monitoring the status of viruses, patches being up to date, anything that's shown up by vulnerability scan, any examples of unprotected PHI, and we know the status of online backup. When we have this in place, we know our security is working. In summary, finish with content, the top recommended security defenses. PBSI can help with all of these. I won't go through all of these, but with Office 365 and protecting emails against click prevention and monitoring for the status of several things here, access control and electronic access control, vulnerability scanning, online monitoring, cyber policies. We're happy to help if the Academy has any members with interest in these services. The prices listed here on the right-hand side are our standard prices. We discount all prices for Academy members. So we're finished with content, and I want to thank both all of you, each of you who are attending and have attended these webinars, and I hope that these have been really useful and helpful. That's our goal, is to educate. And I want to thank you once again, our partners at the Academy, for envisioning the need for this information and making this available to Academy members. So thank you to all for your attention. Ask by email or phone questions anytime. Hope this has been useful. Hope everybody has a good day. We're finished.